Right, I will be extremely brief because I'm very conscious that everyone's got lunch to get off to and lots of emails to catch up and that sort of thing. I was just going to offer a few very, very top-line reflections from what I thought was a magnificent session this morning. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we all did. The first thing that I think came up a couple of times actually was the role of marketing. What is the role of marketing and why is it we always ask ourselves that question? I was sitting there imagining myself at a logistics conference while everyone sat around wondering what the role of logistics was and how they got products from A to B. But I think it's a legitimate question for us to ask ourselves. And I suppose my perspective on this would be we should be really, really proud of our discipline. And we should be very, very proud of the work we do. We do amazing things and we make customers happy. That's kind of what we do. And I think that's really, really important to remember that. For the organisation, we should be thinking ourselves as those of us on the client side as the chief growth officers for the organisation. If we're not the ones that are catalysts for growth, then frankly, who is in the organisation? So my perspective on that would be we need to stand very, very tall in the organisation. The second thing I think came up a lot of times was the importance of us as marketing folk to influence internally. And Fran talked about this, and she talked a lot about leading the language of the boardroom, and someone else talked about the language of finance. What that means for me is really, really focusing and zoning in on those metrics that matter. I love the high fibre cereal analogy. I think that's one that probably resonates with all of us. And I think a really important question for us to ask is, is effectiveness really at the heart of the briefs that we're writing? Is it something that we're thinking about day in, day out? And are we influencing sufficiently across other functions? And I know I spend as much time as I do with my agency partners, as I do now with the IT function, the finance department and so on, doing some of that softer influencing. So I think that imperative for us as marketing people to influence effectively across multiple disciplines is really, really critical. I love the sense of leaning into change. I think that's a really, really important part of us. And the last section is a very, very good reminder of why that's so critical for us. The aeroplane analogy definitely rings true. Change is really, really tough. So I think that's definitely something that came through. And Nigel talked very eloquently this morning about the benefits and consequences of change. And I think us as leaders at all levels should be thinking about how we can celebrate and evangelise the benefits of change whilst also facing into some of the consequences and challenges that change can bring. And the final thing, obviously, was data. So it's something we're all talking a lot about, and I really like the focus on outcomes. I think that's critically important. So we've got a big agenda back at M&S around data, customer centricity. We use a model called DIAL, so data, insight into action, ultimately leading to loyalty, like-for-like growth, and customer lifetime value over a longer time period. And I think the focus on outcomes is critical in terms of evangelising the benefits of customer centricity and data, and bringing that direct link between data and customer centricity and business performance at the end. So what's our spirit? What should our spirit be at the end of this morning's session? Well, personally, I'm incredibly excited by what I've heard this morning. I think there is a world of possibility out there in marketing. There's probably no better time to be a marketeer than there ever has been. I feel energised, but also quite challenged around going back and asking some really tough questions about whether or not we're really putting effectiveness at the heart of what we do. But most of all, I think we should be confident and proud in what we do as our discipline and the role that we play in the organisation to drive growth and to ultimately make customers happy. And that was my take out from this morning.